Brandon, this was your first movie. I've heard that the inspiration came when you were sick, but I guess also after what happened to Michael Jackson, the whole celebrity theme, the whole issue about his disease, also maybe stuck in your mind, no?
Yeah, I mean, especially for the death and the funeral, I was thinking about a lot of Michael Jackson or Princess Diana or a bunch of celebrity funerals.
And recently we had also the death of Whitney Houston. And, when I was watching the movie, I was thinking, well, the fans and the relationship of the fans with all this media and the celebrity paranoia sometimes. So that was also something that you could tackle.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think people have a very, I mean, they feel like they have a very personal relationship with celebrities, and then when they die, there's the sense that they're sort of entitled to the story, you know, and especially if the death is at all confusing, then it's like they should have the true story, but also the whole, I mean, the celebrity is kind of a fiction also, so there was never really a true story. They didn't really have a personal relationship with them. They didn't really know them. So it's a weird thing.
Sarah, this question, when you were shooting this film, because you're an actress, and your idea of this this game with the audience and the celebrity, how do you feel? Because we're part of this movie industry and movie business, and sometimes you have to play the game of the celebrity. I was in Cannes this year with 2 films, Cosmopolis and this one, and this whole celebrity thing, the photo shooting, you know, the red carpet. Sometimes you don't want to be a celebrity, but you're kind of stuck. It's special when you're an actor. It's kind of
yeah.
fatality.
I think with festivals like Cannes, you're really asked to kind of step into this very artificial situation where everything from brands of clothing to alcohol, everything is just kind of imposed on you, and you're asked to just kind of step into this role that isn't really who you are at all. But you kind of do it, I guess, so that your audience can find its audience, and your audience can kind of partake in this, I don't know, this heightened reality. Because I think people, and I think people want to do it because they fall in love with films, and they feel like actors show themselves something that's very, very personal to them, and they feel like that they're entitled to that. And I think that I'm fine with that, and that was something that I really wanted to explore when I decided to do antiviral, because I thought it was really interesting. And what I also really thought was cool about the film is that we did so much of the playback, so much, you know, when I'm taking off my sunglasses and the photographs that are in the film, we did all of that before we shot the film. And so it was really weird for me to then kind of watch the film back, because I got a real sense of what it's like for me actually as an actor, because often we go to film festivals or we're doing junkets and people are just taking photos of you, and you're doing interviews and you're in a hotel room, people are snapping away, and then later on throughout the year, all of a sudden you start to see these photos in different places, in magazines or in newspapers, and you're like, where did that come from? When did that happen? And it feels like a very weird out-of-body experience, because you feel like it was taken in a totally different context and used in a different way. And I think you get a real sense of that in the film, and I thought that was really interesting.
I don't know, Brandon, but at the same time, this is one of the films, when a filmmaker does a film like this, in a way people will ask a lot of questions, and there's a lot of, why do you want to be so explicit in terms of blood, for instance? But at the same time, I kind of feel that you don't have to justify it, because in a way this is kind of your comment on these themes of celebrity and all the paranoia of the new media frenzy. But when you started this festival circuit, that started in Cannes. Do you said to yourself, so I have to have a speech, I have to have a pattern answers, all of that, or you just said, no, I don't have to justify my choices, and this is the film, this is my vision.
In terms of the content, or in terms
Yeah,
of,
content.
well, I mean, I think for the whole film, I guess part of your job as a director or any artist is to kind of engage in that cultural dialogue that surrounds your work, and that's so I wasn't thinking of it specifically in terms of defending it, although obviously people are going to talk to you. People who have a problem with you or who just want to provoke you, attack you for what you've done. I think that's kind of common, but I didn't have like a.
You didn't prepare your defense.
No, I didn't have any answers, and but I've done a lot of interviews now about it, so I sort of thought it.
Matthew, you worked on the editing room with Brandon. I guess this was a process that was all in the script, I believe, but at the same time, in the editing, you could find the film in the sense of the pace and a bunch of other choices that end up with the final version, which we just saw. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened? Because in Cannes there was a version with Brandon also told me, and then you guys decided to cut it.
Well, it was, we didn't have any time away from the movie because of the schedule, and we really didn't have time to finish the film for Cannes. But we kind of agreed, when they asked us if like, okay, we're gonna get ready for Cannes, we're gonna submit to Cannes. You never think you're gonna get into Cannes, nobody gets into Cannes. So we just decided that if we get into Cannes, then the movie's good enough. So if we're accepted, then we'll have to finish it in time. And we got accepted, which was strange. And then we had to finish the movie. So we never got never had the time to take a break and look at whether or not it was finished, except the break between finishing the film and watching it in Cannes. So when we watched it in Cannes, we came home and we talked about it, and we decided that some of the things in the movie maybe, I guess the truth is we set out to make a very different movie at the start, and when the actors start saying the words and when the people start shooting it and the sets are real and not just written on the page, it took on its own life, and the movie took a much faster pace and became more of a sort of noir than I think we originally thought we were making. So we just followed that when we decided to cut those scenes, and we made it into more of a, it needed to sort of pick up the pace towards the end. And I guess, I don't know if it was just a bit too thoughtful or something like that. The character needed to feel what we were trying to say he was feeling. So we made a choice.
Do you want to add anything to that?
Sure. Yeah, I think it kind of, the film took a sort of detour at a certain point, and that ended up, like on paper it sounded good, and I liked those scenes, but in actuality it was sort of detracting from the deterioration of the character and from the character's psychology. So we got back from Cannes, and it was, Matt came up with this idea of something that we could take out that would change it. And at first I was like, no, I was just like, because one of them was one of my favorite scenes in the film, and so I had to really, at first, I couldn't really think about it, and then I watched it, and it was totally obvious that he was right, and that it was a better film with those things cut, and then I couldn't sleep for 2 weeks. I was just like, no, it can't be. Like I really liked, but it totally still was, and yeah, so it was just a good editing decision, and so I had to completely agree with him.
Were the sets built, or they were actual locations?
It was a mix of some of them, like the hotel. It was a real hotel, but dressed, and same with the butcher shop. It was a real butcher shop, but they dressed it and put the stuff on the walls and everything. And then a few things were built, like the white room at the end with the big pictures of Sarah, but
That's a real place.
It's actually
And you can go there.
Yeah, we had to reproduce the actual museum, Sarah's museum. um,
And what about the Lucas Clinic? Was it built or did it exist like that?
It existed like that. I mean, it was a really interesting. It took us a long time to find that, but it was a show space in Toronto, and so I mean, we could obviously put the TVs and we put all the sofas and the tables.
Show space.
I don't know if that's what they told me it was called. A show space.
Like a gallery.
I guess they show things. No, it wasn't even a gallery. They just said this is a show space. You're totally.
That's not a real thing.
All right, fine. Then. I don't know what it was. But they told me it was a show space. They're like, hey, we've got this great show space.
The white room.
Yeah, a really good show space. So we found the show space.
Could you tell us just a little bit more about this changing idea from the beginning of the idea till the last editing?
Well, I mean, I think what I meant was that when I first met Brandon, you know, our inspirations were much different, and I think when you have a character, you know, you go through these casting choices, and then you have someone who's going to be the lead of the film. And I remember, I just have this one memory. I mean, all I really remember about it is I phoned Brandon and I said, the close-ups are really good, right? I should use the close-ups a lot, right? And he said, yeah, we're shooting a lot of close-ups now. Because originally it was a very wide sort of, I think it was going to be a slower sort of more, I don't know how to, I hate saying arty because it sounds so lazy, but it just was a different type of film when we started making it, and then once people start inhabiting the bodies of these characters, you have to obey what they're doing, or else I think if you fight what the performers are giving you, then you're not being honest about what the movie wants to be. So when you have a guy like Caleb who's so physical and so, you know, there's something behind everybody's eyes when they start acting, and his was very alive. So it went from static and wide to handheld and close up. So we had to sort of feel that, and the movie became what it was as we moved along. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, no, that's a good answer. But not, like I'd say naturalistic was in a way, like we were watching a lot of Romanian new wave and stuff, and we thought, okay, we're gonna do something like, you know, long takes, like kind of wide, as Matt was saying, and then sort of naturalistic, and then when it was obvious that from day one what was working, and the wide long takes weren't as good as the interesting stuff we were getting into close-ups and sort of the more stylized stuff. So that was what we ended up running with and letting it have its own play.
I was just going to say, as a viewer, I think that the close-ups of Caleb really help you get sewn into his voyeurism. And that's what I don't know, I feel like it's easier to relate to him in that way when you're watching the film.
Brandon said that there was a scene that was one of your favorites that got a cut in this edit that we saw. Could you tell us what that scene was about and how important was that change?
Sure. There's a scene where Sid goes back. It's after he's gone to the country house and has that long talk with Malcolm McDowell the first time, and he goes in the swimming pool. And then
No, we cut the swimming pool too.
the swimming pool.
He doesn't go in the swimming pool.
What did? And no, the other time he goes into the swimming pool. Anyways, so he's in the swimming pool doing laps, and but he comes back and he has another talk with his boss, and there's this whole. There are a few scenes that got cut, but the one that I really liked was he goes back to the hotel. And Edward Porras, the man from the beginning who gets the herpes injection in his lip, is now famous because he's such a big fan, and he's become famous being part of the fan community, and so he goes back and it's like the same hotel room, but Edward's there. He's like set up a camera and he's photographing the bed, and he has his own video with him lifting his sunglasses, and then he takes a sample of his herpes. I just really like the idea of someone becoming famous just for being a well-known fan, but it was sort of like it was a good idea, but in a bad place in the film, and there was nowhere else that we could fit it in where it would make sense. So it was a better film without it, even though I like that idea and that scene in and of itself.
Hi. How long took to film everything from beginning to the end?
5 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, the main shoot was 21 days for the official production, but then we had a lot of, we shot all the stuff that was appearing on the TV in pre-production in various days, so it was, I forget exactly, but we had a bunch of days. Like the first shooting day, we actually just ran around the condo building that Kareem Hussein and Rob Cotterell, our first AD and cinematographer, were staying in, and we just shot like fake security camera video, and that was like, yeah, quite a few weeks before we started shooting.
Tell us about when you were writing the film, if because it's such a strong social commentary. I was wondering if there was a message that you originally had and you wanted to give to the world, or if it just kind of arose as you were writing and kind of turned into the animal that it is.
Thanks. And good use of the word animal. No, I mean, it was always meant to be a satire, and so I kind of wrote it with that in mind. I guess I mean, I didn't want it to be totally one note, and I guess Malcolm McDowell's character, I sort of tried to write from the perspective of who I thought I might be if I were like obsessed with a celebrity, or like how I might explain that in a way that would be interesting from the other side. But it was always meant to be satirical and a cultural criticism of sorts.
How's your relationship with celebrities? You know, as a viewer, how do you deal with movie stars, for instance?
Yeah, I don't know, really. I think it's hard not to be affected by that culture, because there's something that in the repetition of people's images and the kind of, like, it's hard not to feel that some degree of weirdness when you're seeing someone in the context of movies, and then you see them in real life, or if you meet somebody who you've seen in films. That disconnect is very obvious, the disconnect between, you know, who they are as sort of media constructs and who they are as people. But I'm not, like, specifically obsessed with celebrities yet. Do you guys want to answer that question?
You guys are starstruck.
Yeah, I guess you do. You get starstruck sometimes. Depends on the context, though. I think if you're working with someone who's really famous, you shelve that because you have to work. But then sometimes you get, sometimes you do. You get starstruck.
I don't get starstruck. And I wonder about this. I mean, I don't mean to start a new discussion about it, but I wonder, for me, I get starstruck by people that I admire. And I find that it's more in an arena that I can relate to. So I find when I get to meet famous actors, I don't get nervous, because it has nothing to do with anything that I want to be. Like, I've never wanted to be an actor, so I don't feel like when I meet them, I don't have any kind of feeling except for I like your work. Like, I think that you're a good actor and nice to meet you, you know. But I've noticed when I get to meet real, like, directors or people who I get really nervous around them. And I had this experience when we were at Cannes. I kept, like, running into all these famous people, and then I met this director who I really love. And I got so nervous, and I acted like a complete maniac. Joachim Trier. I found my hand moving towards him in a hotel, and I'm like, whoa, what am I doing? I felt really horrible and like a pervert, you know? So I thought that was really amusing. I don't know. I think it's a funny thing about star culture.
The soundtrack was composed by E.C. Woodley, and it was, he sort of collaborated with another musician, Michael White, who had a huge bank of analog synthesizers, and so they would feed orchestral chords and acoustic music into this bank of old synthesizers, and it would output various waveforms, and then he would edit them up and loop them. So it was, I mean, it was a mix of acoustic and electronic music, but a lot of it was this old, really rich sounding analog synth, which, yeah, it gives it an intensity, and we really wanted to have the music be kind of almost like an internal music, like it was very tied to the internal space of the protagonist. And there's something very bodily about it, and you know, especially when it's loud. In the intense scenes, it really hits you in your chest.
Resta-me agradecer a vossa presença, and let me thank you for being here, and
Thanks so much.
thank you for the movie, and welcome to Lisbon.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thanks for having us.